Good evening, everyone. It's Wednesday, March 6th. The time is now 7:05. This is a meeting of the Town of Halifax Finance Committee. We're being recorded by Area 58. On the agenda tonight, mail, meeting minutes, budget discussion as may arise, chief of police and fire chief. One thing to note is that at 3 members, we're not at our 4-member quorum tonight, so while we'll still hold tonight's meeting as an informational, we won't be able to take any votes or take any official action because we don't have a quorum. Mail, we have a memo from the selectman that Bradford Graham has been appointed to the finance committee. So welcome to the finance committee. We're excited.
Sorry about the name.
We're gonna frame.
We have a new card for you.
We also have an email from Kathy Trinan. Hi Kathy, I've talked with Brian Clinton, the inspector, about our request for more pay for this position. I think it would best be reasonably that we withdraw the request for now. We will gather more data and see how this year goes. So we had interviewed Kathy and Brian about the potential for requesting some more funding for that position, but they're withdrawing their request now. I'll leave those there in case anyone wants to review them. Meeting minutes we actually will not handle tonight because we don't have a quorum. We'll handle the next one, but Kathy, as always, thank you so much for taking such detailed minutes for us. You're very welcome. So budget discussion is going to be our invited guest, so we can see we're on schedule. The chief of police. I don't know if we want to introduce everyone because Chief Charge, you may not have met everyone yet individually, so.
I believe we've met.
Yeah.
Mr. Graham?
No.
Nice to meet you.
Brad.
Nice to meet you.
So we have here, so what we've been doing, Chief, and I've told all the other department heads this as well, is we've taken all of the requests for FY20 that were either level funded or decreased. We've preliminarily gone through and voted to approve those just to get a sense of where we are if we still work off of last year's FY19 figures. We are not voting on anything to do with wage or personnel because wage and personnel hasn't made any recommendations to us. So we'll still be asking questions about things, but just to get a sense of sort of what we've done so far so that folks don't think that we've just, kind of blindly approved a bunch of lines and are now nitpicking other ones. We've only gone and approved the ones that were level or a decrease. Okay, so those of us following along. So on the second page under public safety police, lines 44 through 50 are going to be the ones that we're talking about tonight, and they'll correspond in here to the big binder for sort of more detailed breakdown. I do have the chief's most recent budget submission as of February 14th here as a PDF, so if you need to review that. Okay. So we'll set aside for right now lines 44 and 45 because they have to deal with, well, I think we'll set aside 44 for right now. And I don't think we've voted on any of yours. We've got 2 of your lines, lines 48 and 49, that look like they're level fund requests over FY19. That's expense and station maintenance.
Yes.
Okay. So let's look at 48 first, expense. So the request this year is for $62,485. Again, level funded over the last year. Any concerns or anything you want to tell us about line 48?
No, actually, I think we should be better off than we have been in the past because there was there should be a decrease of 30,000 for in the past. Halifax paid for any officers that went to the Reserve Intermittent Academy. They also issued them first issue for uniforms. In speaking with other area departments, we're one of the only towns in the area that pay for Reserve Intermittent to go to the academy. So in speaking with the town administrator and the Board of Selectmen, we decided that after Richard Crespi, who just graduated, we were no longer going to be paying for the Reserve Intermittent officers while they were attending the academy. Because basically the way I felt is these Reserve Intermittent officers or these people that are applying for the position have a job. So they attend the academy in the evenings and on Saturdays for, I believe, 20-something weeks. So it's almost like showing some motivation that they wanted to go to the academy on their own time to get that the training and then potentially come on the force. So it didn't make any sense for us to be paying them and almost like a part-time job. And once they graduate, give them a full, first issue uniform, where we could say put that money in somewhere else into our expense account and in other parts of the budget.
So when we say that we're paying for the attendees, you mean paying them
The salary.
wages? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, salary.
Does anyone have any concerns about potential for recruitment or retention if we move to that kind of policy? You know, you said that other area towns have similar policies in place.
Right. Basically, what happens is, a young man, woman would take the civil service test, and then they'd have to go to an academy. They can't go to a reserve and admit academy without being sponsored by a police department. So what they normally do is they'll send a letter of requesting from the chief of police to sponsor them, and most chief of police will sponsor them, because what happens is you're paying for that officer to go to the academy. There's no guarantee that once he graduates, he's going to come back and work for Halifax. Once he gets that piece of paper that says he's a reserve intermittent officer, he can pretty much go to any other department or town, anywhere and that accepts reserve intermittent positions and start working for them. So we've paid that money out, and unlike the full-time academy, where we have something written that we'll pay the $3,000 for them to go to the academy, and then they pay us back on each pay week. They have $100 taken out of their pay until they are fully paid off. So it's kind of like an insurance policy for us. So I don't think we'll have a problem with recruiting.
Okay. Thank you. So that was line 48 expense. So line 49, police station maintenance, the request is for $24,100. It looks like FY 18, a little bit more than that was expended at 25 and close. But this also matches the request that was made in FY 18. I remember doing a line item.
There was a glitch with our electric bills, and all of this account is where his electricity.
Bless you. Bless you.
So because of the glitch, they ended up spending more out of that account.
Okay.
That's the account that the electricity is paid for.
Okay.
And therefore we don't foresee that glitch again.
Okay. So those are only two little ones. So line 50, police cruiser maintenance.
Yes. So we're increasing that by 4,000.
Right, so the request is for 15,000, the FY19 voted amount was 11,000.
Right, and the reason for that is, in the past, Halifax Police Department would always budget for two brand new cruisers outfitted at somewhere in the vicinity of $80,000. And this year, the Chief's car would be coming up for replacement. So because of other capital requests, I felt that it'd probably be prudent for us to stick with the two cruisers instead of getting a third cruiser. So what happens is our fleet will be a little older, so we're trying to offset the maintenance costs that we anticipate. As a matter of fact, the one cruiser that will be getting replaced is sitting at the Ford dealership waiting for a new engine, which it's probably looking like we're going to have to go into through the legal department, because it was under warranty. It was warranty. I'm sorry. Ford is refusing to honor the guarantee or the warranty, so we're going to have a battle with them. Their service people are saying there's no fault on our end. It was basically just the engine just failed through just normal wear and tear. But since it was so close to the warranty period, I think they're just playing games with us right now. So that would be one of the cruisers that would be replaced, and then the Chief's cruiser. And in the Chief's cruiser, where I now have a Tahoe, bringing it down to, we're going to get a Ford Explorer. So that's going to be an additional savings, because I believe it's between $5,000 to $10,000 cheaper to get, because you get a small vehicle. So
So in terms of an increase of $4,000, do you think, I guess, are you basing that on previous maintenance costs? I guess just to get a sense of where the $4,000.
Yeah, well, just because like parts and labor are obviously increasing, and then just kind of anticipating that we'll have probably higher priced repairs with the older fleet, because all the other cruisers will be 2017s in our current fleet right now. So, and we'll just knock on wood that nothing major happens. Because as it was, I think at the beginning of the year, I asked for some monies to be transferred over to the maintenance account because it was low. So.
I just ask a quick question.
Oh, please.
So you're expecting how many new vehicles?
Two. One frontline cruiser and one cruiser.
Okay, and then how many other vehicles in your fleet?
We currently have 6, I think, altogether 6. Yeah.
And all are currently on the road except for the one
That's correct.
down there?
Yes.
Any other comments or questions on cruiser maintenance? And then Sandy, can we, sorry, did you
Go ahead.
bring it up? No, I was gonna say, so I know we're gonna set aside wage and personnel, but are there any other ones then that we can? Lines 44 through 47.
I mean, you could ask on
Just get information.
we're on the wage. I can tell you that the clerical one is just the extra 2 days. That's the money on that. The training has gone up $1,200. I don't know what
Okay.
was on that.
Okay, so that's line 46.
Okay. In reference to the training, so one of the capital requests that I'm making is for 5 new tasers. So basically the money that's being requested from the capital is going to be to pay for the tasers. We're going to have obviously training involved in that. We also signed on to Police One Academy, which is a online academy, which every department in Plymouth County signed up for, and it basically allows the officers to go online and conduct training. So it saves us money because we're not sending them away for training, and I can kind of monitor the training that they're involved in, and that rate is per officer. So currently, it was the Plymouth County, because we did it as a county, they were able to negotiate the price down to, I believe, $39 to $45 per officer. So, and then there's other training classes that the officers have to attend to maintain their expertise and certifications, such as the rape investigator, the quarry, and hate crimes officer, the elder service officer. They all have, and school safety officer, they'll have to attend trainings throughout the year. So that's the increase in the training.
And do you think that based on the number of employees and personnel you have, that's sufficient to cover all the ones that you'll do that fiscal year?
I believe so.
questions about the training line, 46? Okay, so line 45, wages.
His line, yes. Yeah.
Is it the same figure that was the
I don't know.
spreadsheet? Yeah, I have the new one, so I'm gonna pull it up and see.
If you don't have it, I have.
Chief is there.
You want a copy of it?
I can pull, oh, I can pull the PDF.
Okay, that's what I look for. So it looks like a little lower than this. Right.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so that sheet's old, but it should match to this, what we have now. So that must be,
Right.
yeah. So the sick buyback,
That's the, you can just show me.
okay, so Chief, do you mind just walking us through a little bit, 'cause I know we have your notes, which are really helpful, but just also to sort of get the discussion going
Yep.
about why we have that $31,000 increase on that line.
Okay, so, basically, the full-time wages for full-time officers, that's gonna be just the CBA. There are step increases, all the stuff that's part of their collective bargaining agreement. Same, basically, for the part-time as well. The overtime, we have an officer that's attending the academy in April, so we're gonna be filling his shift. We'll be backfilling his shift, so that's gonna, incur additional overtime on that. And then the only other thing would be the sick buyback, and from how I understand it is that it's almost like, I guess, like liability or insurance type thing, where if the officers were to, I guess, retire or leave, we'd have to have some money put aside to pay their buyback, which I think, according to the contract, and I could be reading that wrong.
Sick payback.
Sick buy, yeah, is they get, like 25% of their unused sick days, which is total, they can accrue up to 180 sick days. So that's, I guess, placed there, and then it goes, we know that they're not gonna get that kind of money, but then I guess it goes back to free cash or,
Yeah, we don't spend it, but.
yeah, we don't spend it normally.
We did take that up, it's not in the contract, it's just now for existing police officers that were grandfathered in.
Okay.
Can I ask a question just about the vest? You had an article, you had asked for an article on the vest,
Right.
but you were also looking into the fact that we could get reimbursed.
Yeah, what normally usually happens is that we put in the request, and then the town puts a request in with the state, and well, just the state right now, to get half of the cost of the vests.
Okay.
So that's the 5,000 is for basically, half of the vest cost, because I think right now we have to buy new vests for 4 to 5 officers, plus we have the officer that's going to be graduating the academy.
Right.
So that's where that,
All right, so you still feel you need that article? Because I was wondering if you had thought you could take that out of your expense where we were going to be getting some of the money back, or if you still wanted that as a separate article.
yeah, I'd like to keep it just because I'm not really like 100% sure that they will be able to get the money back from the,
Within the same.
within the, yeah.
All right,
Yeah.
that's all I wanted to know.
I'm not gonna make questions about either line 45 or any of the other.
So Chief, for the sick leave buyback, my read from the contract is that the employee must notify the police chief in writing on or before November 1st, the fiscal year prior to the fiscal year of the intended retirement. So unless someone's already notified you all of an impending retirement for fiscal 20, they won't be eligible for the sick leave buyback.
That's correct.
So we won't need that money that you mentioned.
But, yeah, well, yeah, right, yeah, that's correct. And I think there's only, one officer, I think, that would even fall within that, that criteria of the contract anyway right now.
So that would be the 13,000 could come out, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a crystal ball, but I don't,
It's not so much a crystal ball, it's simply that for this coming fiscal year, for fiscal 20.
Yeah, I mean, I would probably feel comfortable with,
Yeah, if someone's going to retire, they would have had.
Right. Oh, yeah, notify me anyway, right. That's
They would
correct.
have had to tell you 3 months ago that they were going to retire in fiscal 20.
Right.
If they haven't done that, they're not eligible.
Right, because if I look at the past years, there hasn't been any money at all that's been spent, so.
So when we zero out that request for 13,373?
Just change the number by that amount.
Yeah, okay, so it would then be. So then that would make the request for line 45 up by 17,747 instead of 31,120. Which means it would be this.
It's quite the workout. I was thinking I should be going here.
Okay, so that
No, I'm
is
thinking I really should have gone up there and doing something.
I know.
that would make the request for line 45 police and wages $1,098,688. 680.
What's the new total come down to?
Yeah. So takes out,
That takes 14.
that takes out half the increase. Yeah. So 30 equals, and that, then it's an overall increase for, this is 12,693, not 26,062. Yeah.
Which is less than 1%.
Does anyone have any questions about any of the lines? Chief, do you have any questions for us? About anything? Thank you very much. For
Thank you.
coming in and
Thank
for-
you.
Yeah, all the information is really, really helpful.
Good, thank you, appreciate it.
Thank you. You're out before 7:30, it's 7:29.
You did,
I was warm in the parking lot.
yeah. Thank
You can
you.
go line down.
What?
Yeah,
I'm gonna go like
let us
this.
go back to class.
Oh, no, all right, yeah.
Only if you're ready.
I'm not 100% sure I have the same sheets. Sandy was helping me delete some,
Yeah.
and clean up some
And
lines, so.
I thought I had sent them, but I'm
I'll
not
double check
positive.
Danielle, but while we're finding some, can you get all of the?
I don't believe I have. Jason Viveras, nice to meet
Right,
you.
right.
Where'd we go?
Hi, Jason Viveras, nice to meet you.
We announced it earlier, we're not at quorum tonight, so we can't vote on anything.
Okay.
But what we've been doing, what we've done so far is, we have taken all of the requests from all departments that were either level funded or decreased. We did a preliminary vote to approve those just to see where we are relative to last year. So it doesn't mean that those will stay that way, it helps us get a sense of perspective of what all the additional requests are for FY20. We are not voting on any other wage or personnel lines because wage and personnel hasn't made any recommendations to us. But we can just go through and ask any questions, and Glenn couldn't be here, he's normally your liaison because of a work emergency, but we'll make sure to, when we do have quorum, we can take a vote. We'll make sure to fill it in. So let's see if I have.
I'm gonna just give you this is in case you don't have it. That
Thank
was
you.
it.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
Big one is the-
Yeah. So we're gonna skip over, so we're down to public safety fire, which is lines 51 through 59. So we're gonna skip over line 51, 52. Line 53, chief, is that just the collective bargaining agreement? That's fire
That's the
wages.
wages.
Yeah.
Yes, and we had a number of firefighters who have more certifications this year. It's not a drastic change in that. We had reduced the budget in the previous year, so this looks to restore that reduction. And I think we have one extra person getting longevity that hadn't previously gotten longevity.
Any questions about line 53 wages? Line 54 training, it's an increase of $4,450 over FY 19.
Right, so the account, that's another thing, the account was reduced in the previous fiscal year by $5,000. That's one issue why we increased it. The second one was the amount of training has actually increased. I brought these with me just for you to take a look at if you're interested. As of February 1st, we've become an OSHA state. So with that comes a whole host of mandatory trainings that we have to do every year, and some of those, we'll put a copy for each of you.
Yes.
Just to see some of the requirements that we have now that we did not have prior to February 1st. So where now we have to provide annual training, bloodborne pathogen training. Some of the things we already did. Others we did when we had the money, or we do it every couple of years, but now it's, a lot of them are mandatory every year.
So these are all mandatory?
Yeah, these are all the mandatory changes that took place with us becoming an OSHA state. And like I said, some things we did do, others we didn't. The increase restores what we had previously, but like I said, we have a lot more training requirements now also.
Any questions on training?
I did make a note, I don't know if it reflects it on your sheets, that if we do change, if there's a change with the new collective bargaining agreement or an increase for wage and personnel, that we need to reflect that in the line item, although I take some money goes towards supplies, like the bulk of that line item is wages.
Okay.
So usually if there is a change in the wage structure in the collective bargaining, I adjust both the wage line and your wages in the training.
Okay, in the training.
will usually-
I think one year we did not do that.
Okay, I'd be surprised, but I usually try to.
Okay, this year,
All right.
sounds good.
All right, line 53. 155 fire expense.
Right, so it's a small increase there, and most of it just because the price of everything has just gone up so dramatically. Turnout gear now, portable radios, all of that is included in that line item, and
We used to have separate articles for.
we used to have separate articles, but now it's all included in that line item. We haven't increased the amount, we're still, I think the turnout gear, we're still budgeting 10,000 for the turnout gear, 5,000 for portable radios, but in reality, the price of turnout gear has gone up quite a bit.
That's an increase in.
And like I said, I'm not sure if this one accurately, this is one of the ones that we deleted a lot of lines on, so.
Okay. I have a shorter looking one that seems like we borrow. so it's
Okay,
like-
that might be
That's
the
the
new
one
one.
that
I think that's
Okay.
the,
Yeah.
okay. So you guys can go out. Okay, so that's 55. Line 56, station maintenance.
Same, for the most part, we budgeted the same amount for electricity. We averaged out the previous 3 years. We've kind of run short on outside services and supplies, so we increased that a little bit, but it's a $500, I think, increase overall.
Questions on 56? Line 57, fire vehicle and equipment maintenance, so decrease the request of $2,435.
Right, and that's another one. We have run between, over 5,000, for every year I've been here, we've run short in that line item. We have, I will say, virtually zero maintenance being performed in-house. Everything, almost everything goes out, and the prices have just, the equipment we have is more modern, and therefore the expenses, it's more expensive to repair.
Anything else for line 57? Line 58, fire medical supplies.
Medical supplies, we increased, this year, we're probably gonna run a deficit on medical supplies this year. We'll have other line items where we can transfer money into that, but, every year historically, we've been running low on medical supplies, so.
And is this line one that's also linked to what you're required, what kinds of materials you're required to have in the ambulance? Because I remember that was, I think it was an article last year, the year before.
We had an article for IV pumps the
Yeah,
year
okay,
before,
yeah.
which the state, that money's still sitting in that article because the state backed off on forcing us to purchase those. So we've kind of left that there,
Okay.
see where that goes.
I didn't know if that was folded, if that was.
But it's a good example because those pumps use different IV tubing and the price of meds have gone up, which we don't, we're still very lucky where Brockton Hospital is still supplying us with the meds, but that could literally, we are one of the few places where we have a hospital that is still doing that. So I don't know how much longer that's gonna stay. And even with that, we're running short in that line item every year. And some of it's just because of the procedures we're doing. I'll give you a great example. Up until a couple years ago, if we had a cardiac arrest or some type of anything really, we would do an IV. Well, an IV catheter costs us around $6. Now we use what they call an intraosseous needle, which is drilled into the bone, much quicker access, much better, much better for us to administer medications, but that one needle costs $110. And we do that every time we have a cardiac arrest or serious trauma, or it could happen with any patient where we can't get IV access. So capnography is another thing that, not to bore you, but it looks at how much carbon dioxide you have in your blood, and our treatments now are, A, it's mandatory, and B, some of our treatments are driven from that, but that device cost $15, and we're supposed to be using them on every patient. So as they've changed the requirements for us, the medical supplies have been much more expensive.
So now that you're required to do, sort of, you have greater capacity or greater requirements because of the OSHA status, does this figure, do you think, does that take into account any additional medical supplies that you might need to purchase because of the additional issues?
So the OSHA changes the OSHA changes doesn't really change anything for us as far as EMS, our EMS requirements. They're more fire-based stuff, general housekeeping things that we have to do, but for medical supplies, it doesn't really impact that. It's just the cost of medical supplies in general and the procedures that we're doing that have increased that.
Can I, just curiosity, and I don't want to, being the new guy, I don't want to open a can of worms. Do you bill?
So we do. Yep, we bill.
And where does that go?
So that the billing goes to the general fund.
Okay, so money received go back into the general fund. Okay.
So, do you think then that an addition of 3,500 or 2,500 is sufficient, given what you said about the cost of the medicine?
I didn't want to increase it too, I think it's a
Right, okay.
reasonable shot that we'll be able to be somewhere in the ballpark with that,
Yeah,
better than we are.
I was just asking, like, do you think, given what you've come short, how far short that you've fallen the last couple of years, do you think that this is enough to cushion it?
So this year, I can tell you that we've, I forgot my glasses tonight, so this is not good.
So I'm just looking, so in 2017, 2018,
Yeah.
you expended 23,500, which is just a little bit under what you're requesting for FY20. So I guess I'm just looking back 2 years, you asked for $500 less than what you're asking for next year.
17.
Right, so I had 21,500 last year, and to date, I only have 1,700 left in that line item, so.
And I think that's why, because I'm looking at the actual for FY18, the actual expended was 23,512, which is just a little bit under what you're asking for FY20. So that's why I'm wondering if you're building enough of a cushion.
We should probably change it to 5. I mean, realistically, I think 5 would be better.
Yeah, and given what could happen at Brockton.
Right.
Yeah. I'm not trying to like push everyone to jack the numbers up, but
No, I know.
want to be
This is
realistic about.
Right, I think it's much more realistic, yeah.
Okay, so then that would change the request for line 58 fire medical supplies so do you want to bring up to a request for $25,000? Because right now you're asking for $24,000, or did you want to?
Yeah, we'll do 25.
The request would be for $25,000, which means an increase of $3,500. Which brings the overall departmental increase to 37,054 at the bottom of that section there. Any other questions or comments for line 58 medical supplies? So line 59 ambulance billing, so Chief, because we have got a couple of new folks who I don't think were here for the discussion about how we changed our ambulance billing, would you mind just explaining?
Sure, so we always did our ambulance billing in-house. We had an administrative assistant who did that. She retired back in September. We knew it was going to be a monumental task for someone new to take on. And actually, I was advised by some fire department consultants that it's not a good idea to have in-house billing when you only have one person that knows how to do it. And so we looked into companies to outsource that, and their projections were much higher than what we had. I asked them a couple things: what does it cost, and what would you project that you would take in for us? Their projections were almost $200,000 higher than what we had previously taken in, and the cost was estimated to be around 4%. What they would do is charge us 4% of whatever they take in. So it was, that's how we asked for a change at the special town meeting, and we increased the budget for that. But when the contracts came in, the low bid was 2.75%. So that's why that number, I've changed that number to reduce it this year a little bit. Because it's not based on 4% now, it's based on 2.75. I think the ambulance revenues have been good, probably not as high as they had originally projected, but we think this year will be over 5.
We think it will be at least 500,000, where last year was about just over 400,000, so.
And wasn't part of this that we were expecting sort of a lag because of the way that this billing system works, is that they go after the like longer term, like the accounts that have been.
Right, so that's one that we're still trying to sort that out, how the money's coming in.
Yeah.
But we looked at like a 4-month period just last week, and like Sandy said, we're estimating roughly 100,000 increase this year. We don't know if that'll be more probably next year, but we don't know how much. It's very hard to tell. When we did that, we also reduced the hours of the administrative assistant as well. So that's a little background on the ambulance billing.
That also, that explains to that decline in the clericals. You'll see it on the line 52, is because we're removing the billing responsibilities from that position. And then the only other, also what falls, so if we go, I know it's not in this section of fire, but technically the fire chief also has the authority over line 60 emergency management. It's also sometimes labeled as civil defense in the binders. And again, just for a little bit of a background, because this is something that we talked about last year in terms of.
So I added an additional 5,000 into that. We had talked about it last year. The issue we have is we have virtually no volunteers for emergency management, and we have what they call a CERT program. It's almost defunct. When we do open a shelter, we have unbelievably difficult time finding people to staff the shelter. Selectman Roy actually, she's moving, so we definitely, we're definitely going to have a hard time staffing the shelter in the future. And one of the things I talked to Mima about was a lot of communities were establishing money to pay town employees to man the shelter.
Yes.
It's, you have a dependable person who's already an employee of the town, and you can pay them a wage to, their actual wage to go over and staff the shelter. And in the long term, I think it's not a bad solution for small communities, but we never had any money to fund it. It's, this year, knock on wood, we never opened the shelter. Last year, we only opened it once. Once. The year before, we didn't open, and the year before that, we had it open a couple days. But I put the number of 5,000 just to have some available in the event that we have to open for a week or so. It wouldn't be something we would spend, that we would say, at the end of the year, we're just going to spend that for the sake of spending. It would be strictly dedicated for if we have to pay employees to go over and man the shelter.
And Chief, doesn't that also include, we found that a lot of the people that come to the shelter have medical issues, they're elderly, and so I was not trained in a medical way, but having an EMT at the center the last time was super helpful. And,
we ended up paying it out of the fire department budget last time.
Yeah. So does that include the pay to help to make sure that there's a EMT?
Well, it could be out of it, yeah.
Yeah, because I think that's really important, because again, I wasn't trained, and I was always very afraid I could hurt somebody by the way that I lifted them, or.
And it can't just be like an open call for volunteers, because they have to go through the CERT program.
They have to have
background
training, they have to have the query checks, that type of thing.
Yeah.
So we still do have some people that are interested in volunteering for that, and obviously we're going to tap into that first. This is kind of a fallback plan.
And the reality is, in the middle of the storm, there's not a lot of people that are actually available or can get there. That's why I couldn't hide.
Yeah.
Or we can get people for like the first 12-hour period, but then after that, the excitement of it is over. They don't want to do the next 12-hour period, so.
Yeah, just to refresh my memory too, did we, I remember something about regionalizing the warming shelters?
Right, so we have our own.
It wouldn't be like a long-term one?
Right, we have our own, we don't necessarily have a shelter anymore. We have a warming center that we want to house people for less than 24 hours. If we knew it was going to be a longer-term event, we've partnered up with Kingston and Plimpton, and now the Red Cross has stepped in and said because the three communities are working together, we're going to supply the staffing for that shelter. So up until this year, it was kind of on, working it out with the chief of Kingston saying, oh, I can send an EMT up there for so many hours. But now the Red Cross has said, we want to support regional projects and we will send Red Cross staff now to man that in the event that you have to open long-term. But it doesn't change that we would still have to have a warming center here, possibly move people here first and then eventually move them up to.
So then to clarify, when we're talking about wages to staff a shelter in Halifax, we're talking about a warming shelter and not staffing a longer-term shelter.
Correct.
A regional one.
Right.
But in the case of last year when we opened it, we didn't really want to do an overnight shelter, but because all of the roads were blocked, it turned into that.
A lot of it was timing too.
Right, because all the roads were, so you have to kind of plan for those events.
Yeah, I think, but my question was about sort of the the Red Cross has sort of taken over the commitment for that regional shelter.
For the regional shelter,
okay.
yes. Yep.
Any other questions on line 60, emergency management? Just to reiterate, you said, and this was the proposal last year as well, that if that line is not expended or the full amount is not expended, it's not going to get moved into another, it won't be line item transferred to anything else. It's
Right.
exclusively for emergency management.
Right.
But, can I ask a question? You said that it would only be used for shelters. The extra $5,000 would only be used for shelter purposes. So we had originally had the 1550 in there. That could be used for supplies and stuff, but the additional 5,000 would only be able to be used for emergency shelters.
That's what I've proposed,
All
yeah.
right. Yeah.
Yes, so 5,000 is wages and salaries and 1,500 or 1,550 is supplies.
Right.
Any additional questions on lines 51 through 60? Any questions for us, Chief?
Nope, the only other budget that falls under me is holidays in Halifax.
Oh, right.
And I don't think that we didn't ask for any increase in holidays in Halifax, so.
No,
They were-
and basically that holidays in Halifax money has been the same each year
Yeah.
and basically pays for the details.
It pays for the barrels, the
Yeah,
ice.
we already voted to recommend because it was a level fund for that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. It's line 137. And it's been the same.
All right, thank you.
Bye, Chief. Good night. See you tomorrow, 2:30. Right, Chief.
All right, so I think it'll behoove us to come back to these, besides the fact that we can't take any votes. Len is the liaison for both police and fire, and Bill was the liaison last year, so I think not only just having here, obviously, for votes, but also having their kind of institutional memory about sort of how last year's budget discussions went, and then this year, I think will be helpful for us. But I'm glad that, especially for folks for who it's their first budget process, we got to go line by line and look at the sheets and kind of see what each sheet is asking for relative to last year's request. We don't have it on the agenda, but sort of as may arise, I just want to review the calendar that we have and to get a sense from either Sandy and or Charlie of our drop dead deadlines for when we have to get things to print for mailing out the warrant and mailing out the thing. So I've sent last year's draft of the finance committee letter to Kathy. We're going to work on that, but obviously we can't really settle that up until we settle our votes. But just sort of how do we reverse engineer based on what your drop dead deadlines are?
So first week of April, I believe, is checked on the calendar. But that's when we're going to press.
We've been telling ourselves the end of, like the last day of March was our
Yeah.
deadline. That's safe?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Because I think the way that we planned it out is that we would have that final week of March, Monday night and a Wednesday night meeting to take care of all our final recommendations, the ones that we can make now before we go to print, and to vote on the letter. The letter, I can send, I'll send last year's copy to both of you, if you didn't remember seeing it in the, included with the warrant, just sort of gives an overview, of what the process was, what the budget looks like compared to last year, what the average homeowner can expect. I'd like to include a little bit more information this year in the letter, not to burden people with it, but just to sort of explain what our budget process was and sort of how we came to the decisions that we did. Again, not, really long narrative, but just a little bit more context for folks to understand kind of what the cycle is. So Kathy and I will work on that, and then we'll all review it too as a committee and see how we feel about it.
Yeah, April 5 is the day it goes to press. Obviously, we need a few days before that to make sure that the proofreading, correct numbers are in there. Sandy's seen everything.
Right. We're telling ourselves March 31st, so that's, okay. Gives us like a snow day.
It's certainly been a challenge to get quorum for you, and that's, I know it's tough. So I would give some advice, just because I sat in your chairs before, is that you're going to need to get an update from Sandy where you stand financially, based on the requests that have been made. And you might have to swing back through and kind of do a couple of adjustments. But I think, it's great that you're meeting with departments this year. That's great. So do you have a calendar of what's left, who's left to come in?
Yep, Kathy's, after Sandy and I went to the school committee meeting last Monday, we're going to do Halifax Elementary and Civil Lake both on March 11th, and Joy Blackwood's confirmed.
Okay, perfect.
And Gordy and Summer and Eric were all there too. They heard that confirmation as well. So we'll handle both of the schools that night, and then we were just talking before the meeting about how we can arrange what's left, because we have water, highway, council on aging, and library still have to meet. Is that right, Kathy? So I think our thought was maybe COA, library, and highway in one night. And then leave water its own night. And that means we could ideally do like maybe March 13th, March 18th, and then leave us those last 3 nights for.
We would need to go, I think what's really important goal for you for this year, because I know it does frustrate a lot of the taxpayers, is when they get the warrant and a lot of the articles say recommendation at town meeting. I think that the capital plan, the capital plan committee met tonight, we should be able to come up with our recommendations in the next, by March 18th, I think. We can present them to you.
Perfect,
And then if you could just have, you don't have to have all of them voted, but really look at them so that when people get the warrant, they see whether it's supported or not.
And it seems like we're going to have a decent amount of articles from not just capital planning, but from wage too, right? Do you think?
No, no. Well, we still have to talk about the 2% for the, we still have to talk about that kind of thing, but I don't suspect that we're going to get a lot, only because, when we look at the evaluations of the jobs, there really isn't much of a fluctuation.
And I'll update you on Thursday too, but the intern's still calling all other towns, he's getting all the data, so he's got a spreadsheet going and everything.
Awesome, thank you.
So then actually that schedule works, because then that would leave us at 26th and 28th or whatever to cover articles, finish whatever we need to finish on this, and then we're still a couple days ahead to give us time to write the letter, make changes to the letter, which I can actually start working on now without actually filling in numbers.
All right, so I'm showing that you scheduled the 11th and 13th, the 18th, the 20th, 25th and 27th.
25th and 27th,
So,
we're scheduled I know on the 20th, that might be the night that if we have to have a night we can't meet. Like, I know I can't be here that night. I think either Bill or Len had an issue that night too. At worst, that could be sort of either an informational meeting for whatever's left, or maybe another kind of like work night if we still have to have a meeting that night. But if we can plow ahead on the 11, 13, and 18, and leave ourselves 25, 27 new articles,
You should be good.
we should be okay.
okay, so I gave you these handouts, and I apologize because the first 2 pages are the same.
That's okay, and also, it'll be a little different because we made adjustments to police and fire based on the
Well, we
conversations.
making some changes. So I did talk, if we work from the back forward, the last page is the revenue sheet. It's the revenue analysis. It tells us where we're getting money. The estimated new growth, I filled in at 113,000. I talked to the principal assessor today. She's very comfortable with that number. She feels the number will go up. But we don't know by how much. She doesn't have that yet. She'll let me know when she does have more information on that. The estimated local receipts, we're using what we estimated for FY19. That's historically, that's what we do. I'm not comfortable going up on anything, even though the fire chief and I did figure we're going to have about 500,000. With the ambulance receipts, it's so hard to tell. You don't know how many calls you're going to get. You don't know the timing of the payments. So right now I have it at 400,000. I feel that's conservative, but I'd like to leave it there for now.
And sorry, Sandy, not to cut you off, but just, can you just review too the, how we kind of separate out like meals tax, where that ends up going? And
Right, so the meals tax we estimated at 90,000. That 90,000, I forgot, I didn't include that in free cash. The 90,000, when we implemented the meals tax, we promised the taxpayer that we would use that money towards capital items. So I take it out of this figure for the estimated local receipts. I take out that 90,000 and use a number less that for the raise and appropriate. So all of this here is the amount of money that we have for raise and appropriate. And then the second to last page is the state money, state aid. These are the governor's figures, that's all we have so far. We probably won't have much more before time. We're gonna get,
We'll have the house budget by then,
okay.
but I don't know when we'll have the house. I think it's usually late March. I think it's late March for the house budget, but I honestly, given the state revenue picture right now, our normal non-chapter 70 local aid is going to change. I really doubt that chapter 70 is going to change. It would take a major effort through the governor's office and the legislature to make anything significant material change in our chapter 70. Basically, you'd have to say, we're adding $1 billion, let's say, something in that order, which they talk about doing, but they haven't found where the revenue is, and considering that they're relying on the revenue projections right now, for the year we're in, I just don't see them being able to do that without a new tax.
So our chapter 70 went up about, well, both the chapter 70 and the chapter tuition assessment, they went up about 70,000, but then our assessments, what the state takes back from us, also went up 25,000. So you don't see as big of a difference as you would think on the bottom line. About 65,000 about, maybe a little more. So we're getting a little bit more from the state, but not much. So right now, the numbers I'm using are the governor's numbers for the estimation. So then the front sheet is what I call the synopsis page. And so I'm putting together, these are our revenues, these are our expenses. We add in certain things like the reserve fund, which we always fund from raise and appropriate. The overlay, which is what the assessor's office takes and puts aside for any abatements or exemptions. And then money to put towards tax title. That's money that the treasurer's office uses to follow up on people who haven't been paying their taxes. So those things are added. Once anything happens with the union articles, that money will be added in there also for added expense for raise and appropriate. Other than that, the other expenditures are all Article 4, which is your budget, your operating budget. So currently,
it's always the same number every year.
right, Currently, we're about 70,000 below, 70,000 more in expenditures than we are in revenues. That obviously doesn't leave us a $300,000 cushion, which we're trying to leave. So what we need to try to do is bring the expenditures down about 370,000, or somehow find someone will help us. If the new growth comes in higher, brings that up, that will help. Other than that, I can't think of any other place that we're gonna get a lot more money. So,
And Sandy, does this take into account the vote we took at the special on the,
Value suppression system, the debt payment.
it takes into account, so we've partially bonded the fire
Nice,
suppression, and we have the debt payment for that.
Okay.
We also put in 60,000 for a interest on short-term, which would be interest to pay the band, which we will have to pay in FY '20.
okay.
It does not have the full debt payment for the fire suppression because we won't be seeing that bill in FY '20.
Okay.
We'll be getting that in FY '21. I do have,
But we've left a gap in there. Right? We're not leaving a gap?
I didn't say we shouldn't, but I don't have a gap right now. I have the debt payment that we know we're gonna have to pay and 60,000. So we have nothing else in there. We don't have any debt.
Because for the year we're in now, we left a gap.
Right. We had left a gap for that and for the council on aging.
Yeah.
Yes.
So the council on aging one's completely out.
Right.
But that, no, I didn't put in any extra money for that. So that's another thing to do about it.
Because what you're doing is you're setting yourself up in FY '21 for automatically having that increase.
Right.
And that's going to have to come first before anything else.
So let's set it up.
So,
It makes it that much more difficult. I'm not saying
right.
you shouldn't.
I agree.
Yeah.
And all of this is before we've looked at any wage increases. So
Outside the step increases.
outside the step increases, right. The step increases are all figured into the wages that are currently listed in here. So, as I stated at the school committee, I'm suggesting to you that the departments all sharpen their pencils and see if there's anywhere that we can cut back. I know it's difficult, the fire chief had really good reasons for all of his increases, but every single one of his lines except for the clerical increases. So, is there any place that any of the departments can cut back? And I don't know whether that means not level service. So,
Yeah, because we haven't even really gotten to the heavy hitters in the budget.
no.
Yeah. And those are both increases that are not insignificant.
I have
I'm
plugged
sorry.
in the new numbers for the elementary school.
Oh.
I did plug those in. Yep,
I'm just
that's
trying to
okay.
follow along.
Ask.
So on this front cover sheet,
Yep,
are you saying you're currently 70,000 in the hole
yeah,
and you want to have a 300,000?
cushion, so that leaves us.
So you're actually
Right, plus the
370,000?
cushion that we should be leaving for the fire suppression.
And that doesn't include any raises or anything like that.
And this is all on a level funded with?
Level
No,
service.
it's all
Right.
level service.
Level service.
Yeah.
Well,
So
it's level
contractual
service.
obligations.
We have a couple of wish lists in there. So on the spreadsheet, if I knew that someone asked for something extra, I would, and that's funny, so the building committee, the note is on one page, but the actual next page. The town buildings custodian, he's asking for an extra person.
Steve is asking.
Right, the highway department is asking for an extra person. So
Yes, for that
I put in what the level service would be, just so that you would have in a note, like in a block,
Okay.
all right? And I talked to both Steve and Scott and told them to think about their priorities. What is your priority? If we have to cut somewhere, where will they want to cut? The thing that you should realize on water and recycling, even though we still want them to be fiscally responsible, their budgets are paid by their retained earnings or their revenues, because they're both enterprises. Recycling, you're gonna see there are some increases on recycling, but because what's going on in the industry right now, these might not be able to be helped. But there's a lot of,
What's the R mean?
pardon me?
The R?
Oh, that's,
The R means that it's been recommended.
so we went, and we,
Oh, those are the ones.
that's, yeah, that's when the R committee voted to recommend,
So
yeah.
even though the R is
Even
there,
those
even
are-
so things are level funded,
Yeah.
it doesn't hurt to ask people to look at their budget again
Yeah.
and see if there's any way to cut.
Okay.
And I'm not, I know this can't factor in because every year is different, but I also want to, I think part of the good thing about having the department heads in, is I just open up the conversation, is to get a sense too of a little bit of the history of certain proposals, and if they've come up before, why are they coming up again now? What's been sort of the, did this department make large cuts last year? It doesn't guarantee that you'll get it back the next year, but I think everyone, because we're a newer committee, I think it's good just to have that conversation about what's been in the hopper for a long time before we got here and what happened last year, the year before that.
Fire chief mentioned a couple of lines that had been reduced last year.
Yeah.
And he does have a couple of lines, his vehicle maintenance and the medical supplies,
Yeah.
that we've often had to do reserve fund transfers to fund. So those lines, how do you justify cutting those lines when we end up having
When historically you've had
fund them
that
anyway?
had to.
For reserve fund transfers, we've held ourselves to that it's an unexpected expense. So now that we've had conversations about that, it's no longer an unexpected or unforeseen
Right.
expense.
But-
Unless something catastrophic.
Right, and then in the case of recycling, I've been talking to the recycling coordinator, and she told me that she's already running out of money. She's gonna have to come for a reserve fund transfer. So, if she had asked for more money last year, we cut it back, and now she's not gonna make it through the end of the year, So this, it is difficult. It's not gonna be easy to go back at it like this, but
Yeah.
it is gonna be necessary.
And ultimately, town meeting can vote
Okay.
Right.
if they want, right? We can make the recommendations, but
Yep.
I haven't said yet, but I've said at town meetings.
okay, so I
My
think,
mother was actually the town accountant
Was
in
she?
Marshfield for a long time. I feel your
And
pain.
you've been hearing it.
And it was harder on her when she retired and we sat at town meeting.
Oh, yeah.
So I have to leave town.
I know.
That's all I know.
I may have to too.
It's hard. No, when you're not doing the job, it's
Right.
hard to be here.
Yeah.
so we're good with the calendar then? We're basically gonna hold Mondays and Wednesday nights, but what we'll do is we'll update folks and, a day or two before again, and just make sure that we'll, see how we're doing.
Melinda, how are you gonna let the department heads know that they have to sharpen their,
That's what I was gonna, I feel, do you think we should wait until after we meet with the schools?
yeah,
So like basically the board, the
Yeah.
12 send out an email to everyone and say, and I guess,
it could be a memo from the board of selectmen and from the finance committee, Charlie,
Yes.
saying,
Yes.
things are not, these things are
Yeah.
looking pretty tight and we
Yeah.
need you to.
because that by
Because I
then
don't want to
we'll-
have to do the whole, we have to cut 3%. I mean, it's kind of alarming that we're at this number right now. Normally we would
Yeah.
see some kind of improvement around this week,
Yeah,
but where we're not seeing it, it's a little alarming to me.
yeah. Well, the last thing I heard
A
was
lot
the
of
state
times
receipts
the
wasn't
elementary
great.
school budget will come down.
Yeah, they
on
always
their
come up with the
version two.
version one,
But their version
and then
two
they come-
did not come down.
Version 2.
No, it didn't. Okay, yeah. They typically are good about.
We were able to save money on the special ed line, but on the tuition. But, yeah.
All right, well, you'll meet with them and see. And again, that resource officer position as an article should be removed, should not be supported, should be gone.
Yeah, we haven't even, that hasn't been.
That's my opinion, and I will speak against it.
That hasn't been
I'm
brought
sorry,
for
what was
us.
that for?
They did an article for a resource officer at the middle school. We just got a resource officer at the high school, and they're looking to fill the position with overtime with the Kingston police officer. And we don't typically do operational line items, with the exception of the conservation agent. We do take money from, it's a separate source of funding, but typically something like this belongs in an operational, especially if it's a regional thing. And it's been snuck in by an article, and I just don't feel good about it.
Do you, just because I haven't gotten like a recent tally, do you have any sense of about how many articles we can expect?
No. I mean, you've been popping them into the folder. And
Right, and I need you to,
Yes.
to get that folder.
Okay.
Because I have the capital articles, I think there was maybe 15, 20,
No, it's
on
not
capital.
excessive.
Anything under 45, we're usually pretty good. But we don't know, because when was the cutoff for petition articles?
Back on Friday. But
Oh, okay.
The petition articles we're getting, I think other than like one or two streetlights, more than financial,
Okay.
for the most part. I think you had some of the typical, the nonprofit organizations.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. All right, so that'll be, so then we'll sort of make that, we'll put that in our calendar too. So after we meet with schools on the 11th, we'll plan on the 12th, you both be here on the 11th, or will someone from Board of Selectmen?
I will not be able to be here on the 11th.
Okay. Charlie, will you be here on the 11th? Okay.
I
Then-
should be.
Okay, because then what, we can talk about, we'll go into that memo to the department heads after we have that conversation. And then we'll plan on getting all the appointments done by the 18th. Leave ourselves that final week to do articles and review the draft of the letter. We'll get as far as we can in articles as humanly possible before we go to press, but that still leaves us that, like, that first week of April if we really had, if we need a
Yeah.
snow day.
Yeah. Hopefully this will resolve itself, and we don't have to start really
Yeah.
having even more meetings to talk about what does it mean if we had to cut this percentage? You know, what services will be affected?
Yeah.
That's it.
Anything else, Sandy, Charlie, Kim?
Just one.
Since we don't have quorum, we can't actually entertain a motion to adjourn, so we're not stuck here all night.
You never actually had a meeting?
If anyone would like to adjourn. Okay, so we're meeting adjourned. We'll call it at 8:17 PM. Thank you so much, everyone, for all your time tonight. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.